Hey you guys, today we are talking about standing body language. Yeah, you must be thinking about why is it just standing? And the reason I'm doing this is because there's just so many different poses that we can do when we're standing up and trying to express our body that this is pretty much like the only category that I'm trying to break it down, like bit by bit, like different positions like standing, sitting, running. Yeah, I don't know, so that's basically what we're going to try to do here. And the reason that we want to go about examining body language is when we're trying to talk to someone, we want our body language to be more open. We want to show the other person that we are actually welcoming and we want people to come and talk to us. And sometimes, if we're not really sure exactly what to do with our hands, body, or how our body looks, then we don't really know if we're doing something that's right or not. So today we're gonna look into that. So for this video, I was thinking about originally just recording myself, like walking and standing and then examining it. But then I feel like that wouldn't be a very good representation of, I guess, how people usually stand. Because when you're standing, it's usually a huge range of different ways that you can stand. And when we look at multiple examples, you can start to compare and contrast in terms of what is okay for you to stand and look and have an open body language, and what other kind of ways that you stand gives off a different impression. So today we're going to look at a lot of different examples rather than just one single example. And if you've actually found this helpful, yeah, let me know in the comments and I'll make similar stuff like this. So for today, the three main points that I want to go over and directly focus on is, first one is facial expressions. Because no matter how you look at it, when we're talking about body language, we're thinking about our bodies, but your face is also part of your body. So you have to examine and see what exactly is your face doing. And that's a very critical part because it's the main way that we can express if we're sad, happy, angry, those stuff like that. Second thing we're gonna look at is space, because the amount of space that our body takes up, that has to do a lot with how comfortable we are with the situation. And the third one is flow. Flow has to do with, it's more like a tension within your body. If you're too stiff, or if you feel like you're very loose and relaxed, those things matter when you are looking at a body language that's more so open or closed when you're talking to someone else. So first I want us to look at this scene right here. This is a scene from MasterChef, and to some degree I feel like I'm doing like free advertisement for them, but it's a pretty good show. So it's a cooking competition where people are trying to compete to be the next master chef. But here we're not looking at the actual, like what's actually going to happen. We are going to look at what the contestants are doing and examining the way that they stand so that we can learn something from them. So we have a little clip here. Put this to the side. So here, just from this scene right here, right now I want you guys to just pause and examine every one of the 9 people that they're standing here. And I want you to label and see which ones you can pick out that looks timid or nervous in this scene. Take some time if you need to, pause this if you have to, but I want you to do this exercise with me. Okay, do you know which ones that you looked at and you feel like are more nervous or timid in this situation? So when I'm looking at this scene here, the first thing that I'm going to focus on is the facial expressions. So when we're looking at facial expressions, I know from like this angle, you can't exactly tell what everyone's facial expression is. It's not zoomed in that closely, so you can't really tell. But here we can look at just by the mere angle of the person's head. So let's take, for instance, the first guy right here. He's looking straight ahead. So his head's not moving anywhere like up and down, perfectly still and upright. With this guy, same thing. But you can see that this next girl here, her head is just angled slightly and she's not looking directly straight forward, but slightly angled down. And we'll see just in a little bit how this actually affects the way that you're being perceived by everyone else. Now this next lady here, completely different. You can see her head, instead of being downwards, she's actually tilted back a little bit and she's looking upwards. I don't know if you could see that. It can't really zoom in, but her head is like slightly tilted back. Now this one, she's angled slightly forward a little bit, but mostly upright. And for this guy, upright, straight, straight, straight. And this guy, you can also see leaning forward a little bit. And the face is not exactly leveled. And the reason we're talking about the leveledness of the head is that this has a very big indicator in terms of how other people sees us as either confident or not. The more your head is tilted downwards, it gives the perception that you are feeling more nervous, more timid, and it doesn't express that level of confidence when we're trying to talk to someone else. The reason why this body language really influenced the way that we see other people is that we always associated the lowering of our heads to submissiveness. When we show respect, when we are admitting that we have done something wrong, we usually lower our heads to show that we are in the wrong or that we are submitting to the other person's authority. And in itself, it's not so much of a bad thing, but if you are within a normal conversation, just talking with someone random, when there's no need for you to actually admit anything that you're doing is wrong or to be apologetic for anything else, there's no reason our heads should be looking downwards or facing downwards, because it gives off a wrong impression of who we are or how we feel about ourselves. Now let's look at one particular contestant. This is the exact same contestant. The picture on the right here, he's basically a earlier version of this person. This is what happens later on in the episode, where he's starting to feel a lot more confident. And if you look at these two pictures, this is the exact same person, but just with a slight fix of posture and the way that the body looks. Can you see how this one on the left looks so much more confident than this picture on the right? And it's just literally a few fixes. So I feel like if you just make minor corrections to the way that you stand, the way that you move your body, and the way that you carry yourself, you can easily fix in terms of possible ways that you might be giving off the impression that you're not really open to talking or that you feel nervous around other people. For him, the main thing that stood out to me is, I mentioned before, the tilting of the head. The feeling of that, the fact that he felt like maybe he has done something wrong and he doesn't want a direct confrontation or like a face-to-face with the other person. So you can tell his face is slightly angled down here. Versus this one, where he's completely upright and looking the person straight ahead, which is indicator of, oh, I have nothing to hide and I'm willing to just look at you face in the face and I feel pretty good about myself. The second aspect I noticed is putting his hands inside his pockets. At first glance, it doesn't really feel like such a big deal because he's just putting his hand in his pockets. Maybe he wants to reach for something or he wants to just feel comfortable. But from the outside perception, it might feel like he's trying to hide something, or that he's trying to hold or tense up so that he doesn't have to deal with the emotional turmoil that's inside. So here, especially with all the other body language, the putting his hands in pockets gives off that vibe of nervousness. Can you put your hands in the pocket and look confident at the same time? Of course. But as a general rule of thumb, when you do put your hands in your pockets, it does give off an impression that you are potentially hiding something. So, give or take, something that you want to notice. Now let's look at his legs. When we're looking at this picture on the right here, you can tell that the amount of space that's between his legs, it almost matches the shoulders here. It goes straight down and he's standing perfectly straight. Actually, maybe a little inwards, but overall, it's pretty leveled. But this picture on the right, the legs are standing extremely close together. It's almost angled, and it's almost like pressing against each other here in comparison to his torso, his shoulders right here. This portion is a huge display of the amount of space that he's taking up. When we don't feel very confident about who we are as a person, we tend to withdraw or try to make our, existence as small as possible on a very subconscious level. So for him, he's almost trying to make himself look small, almost as if he doesn't want to be noticed, or he doesn't want to be picked on, or he doesn't want to be seen in a way. And making your body smaller in this way, through the hands, through the legs, through the head, you can tell that he is trying to not be noticed by other people. Versus the same him, except in later on, he feels very confident. He has no problem showing his chest, his face, his legs, and he's very proud to be himself, especially in this picture. Now let's talk about the aspect of space. Space is mainly how we go about showing how comfortable we are in a way. It's not always the best indicators, because sometimes if you take up too much space, it might feel like you're actually trying too hard. So when you're showing your body language, you want to take up space as you feel comfortable, but you're not trying to take up the least amount of space that you can possibly do, because when you do that, it makes you feel like you are trying to make yourself someone that is trying to fit in rather than someone that is just a natural part of the social interaction. Here, same clip, and we are going to look at space, and especially in terms of the leg spaces here. Some are kind of hidden, but we'll get around to that. First thing we want to look at is having a straight back. And here, honestly, everyone has pretty good posture in terms of their backs, so there's not much to look at. But if your back is like bending over slightly, just like the head angle, then it gives out the same impression of submissiveness. So I wish we had like an example here. Okay, actually a little bit. No. It doesn't really show a very clear example of the back tilting forward. So, but it does matter. As for the leg space, here we have a range of different examples that we can look at here. So let's look at the first guy here. So this guy right here, you see him? The space that he's taking up is relative to his shoulders. This is probably the widest stance that could have taken, versus him, which is pretty neutral. This this gentleman right here, and his looks like it's pretty neutral too, neutral. And the guy we've seen before, very narrow in comparison to his torsos. So just from a first impression, you can see him. Yeah, he looks pretty relaxed. Looks pretty, maybe even arrogant, because his hands in his pockets, and he feels like he's in a more dominant stance. So, and even maybe to a degree where he might be trying too hard, I don't know. But overall, he looks pretty confident. In comparison to the second person, his leg position, even though he's not having as wide of a stance as this guy, he's pretty relaxed. He has shown no signs of being nervous, and he's standing there perfectly content and happy to be himself. But this lady right here, you can see her legs are in the same manner as this gentleman right here. Very small in terms of the space, and you can see that here her shoes are even pointing inwards towards and all together. Her hands linked together, trying to protect herself in that way to make herself a little more comfortable. Head tilting down. So it makes me feel like the first impression here, she feels very nervous. So if you are looking at this and you feel like you're doing some of these actions, these are some things that you can pay attention to. The angle of your feet, how close your feet are standing towards each other. This one right here, she is completely different. Man, she gives off the vibe that she's just like, I'm a boss. Head cocked towards back, tilted up, and just look at how wide her stance is. Like, in comparison to his stance, like, hers is pretty wide too. And it's very straightforward, both feet pointing straight forward, and it almost looks like a military stance, where she's really proud to be herself. And the space of her legs are matching, or even slightly more, actually matching her torsos, her shoulders. But this lady right here, it's kind of halfway between her and her. She's not standing overly wide, but just naturally neutral. So she's just standing by herself, and this is a perfectly fine position to be in. And him, they're all around the same neutral positions. The legs are slightly closer here. You can see that. So you can kind of see just by looking at these different spatial awareness that you can tell how confident someone can potentially give off the impression to be. So if you want to, you can pause this section and kind of look over everyone's standing posture here and try to actually examine yourself in terms of what it is. But something that I do want to point out is that when you are standing, you don't want to be overly dominant or overly shy at the same time. Like this position, you can take and try to be the most dominant person in the room, but usually that's not really a, I guess, stance that you want to take, because people are usually like, oh, if I'm more confident, then that's better, right? Not necessarily. Usually you want to take a neutral stance, because people don't want to talk to people that are like super braggy or try to show off everything and try to look like they're trying too hard. They like to talk to a person who just likes being themselves, which is like him. He doesn't show that much signs of trying to be overly confident, trying to take up too much space or too little space. And I will actually to some extent argue for her that even though she has a strong stance, she is just being herself. She's not trying to take up overly amount of space, and at the same time she's not shying away from who she is. So if I was talking to them too, I feel like, okay, yeah, these are pretty nice people that I can talk to. They're not trying to hide anything. But if you're trying to actively decrease the amount of space that you have when you are talking to someone like him or her, these two people right here, then you give off the impression like, do these people actually want to talk to me as just as normal people, or do they feel like I'm scaring them, or are they trying to hide something, or what exactly is making them feel nervous that they can't show their body language like them, which are just really relaxed. The last point that we want to talk about is the concept of flow. And when I'm defining flow, it's really about how much tension is in your body. Because when you are feeling really stressed or nervous, your body movements tend to be a little jerky. And sometimes a lot of these body movements might feel they're more subconscious. So you can't really actively notice all these things at the same time. But when you're looking back, when you feel it, you can start to really see how your body is reacting in a way that you are really nervous and you feel like you're under attack. But these are body language that we have to notice if we want to give off a vibe that we are just casually relaxed and trying to talk to people as they are. And here we have 3 contestants here, and they are under a lot of stress, so that's why we can see them in terms of their body language when they are feeling nervous, and they are moving around a lot. The first thing that I want to talk about is fidgeting. So here you can see that in this clip. Look at the middle guy right here. You can tell that he is moving around back and forth, his body, a good amount. And you can tell the legs are moving quite a amount too. Especially right here. Focus around. Let me see if I can move this. Okay. You can see that his body is moving back and forth and he is kind of almost shaking a little bit. And now look at the first lady right here, this lady right here. Even though on like her torso's on her top part, she's looking like she's completely not phased, like everything's perfectly going on. But you can tell that her legs are slightly moving back and forth too. You can see that? It's slightly moving back and forth. So it kind of shows that nervousness too. When we're doing small things like fidgeting, moving really jerky movements, and that you're not really calm and relaxed, that's what shows and gives off. So especially in the standing part. And you can tell that from this angle, she's standing really close, and so is her. Maybe it's a side angle, I don't know, but it looks like her legs are standing really close and her knees are moving. And also, you can see a little bit of the last girl right here. Her knees are also moving too. These fidgety moments that I'm mentioning here, this is what is tension. Like, we feel nervous, so we feel this need to constantly move our bodies to somehow relieve that pressure or something. But obviously it's not working, so it's something that we have to take note of and to actively calm and make our body more relaxed. This is the other side, the other extreme. When you're feeling very nervous and you're trying not to fidget and you're completely stiff and it doesn't feel like you're trying to actively not move your body as much as possible and being very stiff and very straight with your body language. This is also the other side where it looks like the other representation of what anxiety will look like. Because you're feeling nervous, you usually move your body around a lot, or you don't move your body completely at all. When you're having a very relaxed body language, your body tends to naturally move around at least a little bit. Like, you can see him, he's just casually moving back and forth, and it's not at a very fast pace. You can see that? His body moves here and there, and it feels okay. It's not in a very jerky movement, so it almost feels like it's flowing really well. That's why I use the term flow. And as for this person right here, and this lady right here, even though they're not really so much in a very straight and very tensed up position, but they're just casually standing and not having those jerky movements as well. So as long as you keep those concepts in mind when you're standing, show relaxed and not do any fidgety jerky movements, on the overall impression scale you will feel like you're coming off as more relaxed. Here is another clip where I feel like this is pretty good representation of like different ways that you can stand while all feeling very confident about themselves. Like right now, these three individuals, from what I can see, all feel pretty good about themselves. Him, he's kind of swaying his body, really relaxed body language, torso faced, looking straight forward. He feels comfortable about himself. And for the middle guy here, he's more of a respectful person. He's more polite. So he's standing here, but at the same time, he's also showing really signs of confidence with the torsos and the face. This gentleman too, same things, looking straight forward, chest out, a very upright body. So just letting you guys see that. The key concept to understand here with body language is that it looks natural when it is happening subconsciously. And it happens only subconsciously when you had so much repetition that it becomes natural. It's kind of like when you are shooting a shot, you're practicing shooting a basketball. It will get to a stage when you have shot so many shots that your body moves on reflex, that the body knows and feels a certain way, and it's almost by a reaction. And that is the point that you want to get to. And as you're just starting out, your body has already feel the need to adjust to a certain way. Like maybe when you're going out, your body naturally clenches up or naturally tenses up because it has been doing that for so long. And adjusting these body language and practicing them by yourself to a stage where that you can actively change, notice, and not having to worry about it. That's when the looking natural actually happens. So look at these different aspects of different points. There's so much more to talk about, but if you've actually found this helpful, then let me know. We'll do similar things on like this. But the usual, you can like, subscribe, comment, and yeah, the usual things. And I will talk to you guys next time.